The summons comes at dawn. Not a knock would imply courtesy. It is the head steward's voice through the door, flat and practiced. Lord Ashran will see you in the Great Hall. Bring nothing. This will not take long. Vale Saran has lived in the Ashran estate for 11 years. She has eaten at their table, worn their colors, answered to their name. She has also spent 11 years watching Lady Mira Ashren's eyes slide past her at formal dinners, watching Lord Fenwick Ashren's mouth tighten whenever a guest asked which of the girls was the blood daughter and which was the charity case. She has never once been told she belongs here. She has simply been here. She pulls on her plain dress and goes downstairs. The Great Hall is full. That is the first sign this is not a private conversation. House staff line the walls. 3 of the Ashran cousins stand near the fireplace, wearing expressions they have rehearsed for days. Lord Ashran stands at the center of the room with a document in one hand and his reading spectacles pushed up on his forehead, which means the document is meant to be seen, not read. Vale Saran, he says, and the way he says it, without the family name before it, tells her everything before he speaks another word. The Ashran household has reviewed its obligations. He does not look up from the paper, though he clearly has it memorized. You have shown no affinity mark in 11 years of residency. You contribute no rank, no prospect, and no advancement to this house. The generosity extended to you was considerable and has not been returned. Effective today, your name is removed from the Ashran registry. Your allowance is discontinued. You will vacate your room by mid-morning. Silence. Then Lady Mira, from the side of the room, her voice soft and ruinous, we did what we could, dear. You simply never gave us anything to work with. You understand. Saran looks at her. She does not cry. She has learned, over 11 years, that crying in this house only gives them something to reference later. She looks at the cousins by the fire. She looks at the document in Lord Ashren's hand. Then she nods, once, and goes upstairs to pack her bag. The bag is not large. It turns out 11 years leaves very little that is actually yours. Idrin Calhert's note is already under her door when she comes back down. She does not need to open it to know what it says. They were engaged 4 months ago, and the engagement was always more his family's calculation than either of theirs, but still, the timing of it lands like a stone drop from a great height. She tucks it in her coat pocket unread. The gate. The gravel drive. The estate at her back. The housekeeper, old Marate, is waiting just outside the gatehouse with a small wooden box in her hands, dark wood, iron latch, no larger than a book. Marate's eyes are red at the edges, which is the only warmth Saran has seen all morning. A man left this, Marate says quietly. Years ago. Before you even came here. He said to give it to you when you had nothing left. When everything had been taken. She presses it into Saran's hands. I'm sorry it took this long. The box is heavier than it looks. Saran walks. She finds a room at an inn near the Southern Market, the kind of place where the floors creak and the window faces a brick wall and no one asks your name. She sets the box on the table. She sits across from it. For a long time she simply looks at it, because once she opens it there is no version of this morning she can go back to, and even a terrible morning you know is better than an unknown one you don't. Then she breaks the latch. Inside, a letter, folded 3 times, sealed with dark wax. And beneath it, a flat disc of pale stone etched with lines too fine to follow with the eye, lines that seem to shift when she isn't looking directly at them. The moment her fingers close around the disc, the lines stop shifting. Ledger Sovereign, Inheritance Class. All outstanding creditor debts recorded under the sovereign seal transfer to the registered heir upon contact with the contract sigil. 37 debts active. Sovereign bound. Non-disputable. Non-transferable. Collection status, immediate. The disc warms in her hand. Then, one by one, 37 names surface in her mind like entries appearing in a ledger, names, amounts, collateral clauses, dates of binding. She doesn't have to read them. She simply knows them, the way you know the layout of a room you've walked through in the dark. She knows House Ashren's 3 debts before she has even unfolded the letter. She reads the letter anyway. Her father's handwriting is precise and unhurried, the handwriting of a man who chose every word and meant it. Asterisk Saran, if you are reading this, the day has come. I placed you with the Ashrens because I was ill and they owed me a debt I chose not to collect in coin. I made them responsible for you instead, and I bound that responsibility in the sovereign seal so they could not abandon it without consequence. What I could not bind was how they would treat you inside it. For that, I am sorry, asterisk. Asterisk, I want you to know that I watched. Not every day, but enough. I know about the formal dinners where Myra's eyes went past you. I know about the affinity examinations where Fenwick winced. I know about Edrin Colhart, and I know what his note said before you read it. The ledger sovereign is not a weapon. It is a reckoning. The debts are real. The people who hold them made their choices. All you have to do is collect, asterisk. Asterisk, you were never unloved. I need you to understand that before you read a single name on that list. You were never unloved. I was just waiting until you had nothing left, because that is when you would know, without any doubt, that the power is entirely your own, asterisk. I am proud of you. Your father, Vale Corin, sovereign creditor. Saran sets the letter down. She does not cry. Not because she is holding it back, but because something in her chest has gone very quiet and very still, the way a room goes quiet when the last of the wind drops. She sits with the silence for exactly as long as she needs to. Then she folds the letter, puts it back in the box, picks up her coat, and walks out into the city. She starts with the smaller debtors. This is not sentimentality, it is strategy. The Ledger Sovereign's collection protocol allows her to move through the list in any order she chooses, and she chooses ascending. A merchant house in the Eastern Quarter that owes 3 years of delayed licensing fees, bound under her father's seal. A minor lord whose estate expansion was financed through a sovereign loan in exchange for a trade route concession. A textile guild whose charter was underwritten at her father's signature. She visits each one in person, presents the debt notice that materializes in her hand when she focuses on a name, and waits. None of them argue. That is the nature of a sovereign-bound debt, the binding is not a suggestion. The textile guild master goes pale and calls for his clerk immediately. The minor lord asks, twice, if there is any possibility of an extension, and when she says no, he nods and goes to find his seal. She does not need to raise her voice. She does not need to threaten. She simply stands there in her worn traveling coat with the debt notice held out, and the weight of 37 legally unbreakable obligations stands behind her like a wall. By the 3rd day she has collected 11 debts. By the 5th, 22. On the 6th day she calls in House Colhart's first debt. Edrin is not there when she arrives at the Colhart offices. She notices, and files the information away without feeling much about it. His father, a broad-shouldered man with a merchant's careful smile, meets her in the entrance hall with both hands already raised in a gesture of reasonableness. Miss Vale, he begins. The debt is for 400,000 in continental currency, collateralized against the Colhart merchant trading license, Saran says. She does not sit down. The collateral clause was written into the original bond. If the principal is not settled, the license transfers to the sovereign creditor's heir. That is me. She sets the debt notice on the front desk. I'll give you until tomorrow morning. He settles by noon. The license does not transfer. Payment in full before the deadline is one of the 3 lawful ways to discharge a sovereign debt, and Edrin's father is not a foolish man. But the second Colhart debt, for a smaller amount, carries no such clean exit. That one is collateralized against the family's stake in the Northern Canal trade route. By the end of the week, that stake is hers. She does not see Edrin until the 7th day, when she is leaving the Continental Registry office. He is standing on the steps, clearly having waited for her, his coat too formal for the weather and his expression working very hard at dignity. Saran, he says. She looks at him. He is not unkind, she thinks, just the sort of person who makes calculations and calls them principles. Edrin. I wanted to say, he stops. Starts again. I didn't know about your father. I didn't know any of this was. I know you didn't, she says. It is not forgiveness and it is not cruelty. It is simply true. I hope the canal route is useful to you. It was profitable when I looked at the ledger. She means the family's old canal stake, the one she now controls. She pauses on the step below him. The note you left, by the way. I still haven't read it. Then she walks past him and down into the street. On the 8th day, She goes to the Ashran estate. She does not send word ahead. She arrives at the gate at mid-morning, when the household is awake and the cousins are likely in the east drawing room and Lord Ashran is probably in his study doing the exact thing he is in fact doing, reading a letter from his solicitor about a debt notice he received 3 days ago and has been hoping will somehow resolve itself. Marit lets her in. Marit does not smile, but she holds the gate open 2 seconds longer than she needs to. Lord Ashran is in the study, as expected. Lady Mira is beside him, which Saran did not anticipate but does not mind. The solicitor's letter is on the desk between them. Lord Ashran's face does something complicated when she walks through the door, but he pulls it back into the expression of a man who intends to negotiate. Saran, he says. We've received a notice regarding a financial matter. We believe there may be some confusion about. There isn't, she says. She sets the first debt notice on the desk. Then the second. Then the third. The first 2 are straightforward, 200,000 and 340,000 respectively, due immediately, collateralized against the Ashran trading accounts. You can settle those in coin and the accounts remain yours. She places the third notice on top. The third is different. Lady Mira leans forward slightly to read it. The color leaves her face before she has finished the first line. The third Ashran debt was taken out 22 years ago, when Fenwick Ashran was building the houses standing in the Continental Registry and needed the sovereign creditor's endorsement to secure their noble classification. The collateral clause, written at the bottom of the bond in her father's careful handwriting, reads, in the event of non-payment or the surrender of any sovereign-held obligation without consent, the Ashran family name registration in the Continental Registry transfers to the sovereign creditor's heir, to be held, returned, or dissolved at the heir's sole discretion. They gave up the right to their own name the day they took her name away from her. Lord Ashran's voice, when it comes, has lost most of its register. The first 2. We can settle the first 2 immediately. I know, Saran says. And the third, there must be a way to. The third requires a different kind of settlement. She takes a folded document from her coat. Her father's solicitor prepared it. She places it on the desk in front of Lord Ashran. You reinstate Vale Saran as a registered name in the Ashran Household Registry. Not a charity case. Not a ward. A full registered name, recorded in the Continental Registry and sealed. That discharges the collateral clause and the debt. Silence. Lady Myra's hand has found the armrest and is holding it. You would want your name back, Lord Ashran says slowly. After everything. I want your signature on that document, Saran says. What I do with the name afterward is my own business. He signs it. His hand is steady, which she finds she respects, in a distant way. His wife says nothing. The cousins, who have appeared in the hallway at some point, say nothing either. Saran watches the ink dry, takes the document, folds it, and puts it in her coat beside her father's letter. She walks back through the hall that called her a burden. She walks through the gate that put her out with one bag. She walks out into the morning, and the morning is very bright and very clear, and she is 23 years old and owns a canal route and a textile guild charter and the sealed registry name that an entire household just had to give back to her with their hands shaking. That night, in the same rented room with the creaking floor and the brick wall window, she takes her father's letter out of the box and reads it again. The whole thing, this time, all the way to the bottom, where there is a postscript she had not noticed before. *P.S. I also left money. Not in the box. In the First Continental Vault, account registered to Vale Saran, opened the year you were born. The balance has been compounding for 23 years. I thought you deserved to find out about the debts first, on your own, so you would know what you were capable of. The vault number is on the back of the contract sigil, *. She turns the disc over. She sits with that for a long moment. Then, very quietly, in a rented room where no one can see her, Vale Saran allows herself to smile.